when I was on Rogan, we were discussing the book. I believe it's Death by Injection or Murder by Injection. And it was the discussion of the Rockefellers coming in and changing the medical uh, education that we got in this country. They ran off homeopathics and they made everything petro-based, medications and pharmaceuticals. And people can't come to grips with that. And then when you go to the page and you look at the author of that book, the first thing that comes up is anti-Semitic, which, there was a time that meant something, right? Where the people are like,
Yeah.
oh, they like clean the browser history and stuff like that. And yeah, Murder by Injection, the story of a medical conspiracy against America.
And that's
it's
how you know.
great-
And that's how you know they don't want you to buy it. $210.
Yeah, look at that, $210 for a used one. They don't want you buying that. Look at that,
Wow.
$210. That's unbelievable. But if you look
what's I don't understand what's anti-Semitic about what real healing is about.
well, because what he talks about is the Rockefellers going in and making everybody and he had some comments later on
So
about
I didn't even know. So
Hitler.
Are the,
So they
are the
brought this
Rockefellers? No, I didn't know. Are the Rockefellers Jewish? I didn't know.
I think if you go back far enough, maybe there is. I think what happened was he had some comments about World War II, and that basically he thought that one side was the actual bad guys, and they take that and they bring it over here to this book that he wrote, so to scare you from reading the book. So if he's like, if you're not pro-America in World War II, you obviously are anti-Semitic, and so they don't want you reading that book. So they bring, oh, this guy's anti-Semitic, and you don't check out the book. If you go to his Wikipedia, we don't have to right now. But that was the discussion going on. And now people are having that discussion more than ever about health and stuff like that. Still, people think we're crazy. I don't know where you guys are, but I'm a terrain theorist. I don't know if you guys are into terrain versus.
Well, of course.
Germ.
Yeah, because
that's so funny. You say, of course. That's like the craziest thing to say outside of the show. People
it's not,
lose their mind.
No, it's not all. I mean, Will and I will stand there and debate with any virologist or medical doctor or anyone because we know and have witnessed for. I mean, I had to experience it myself at age 20 to figure out how to heal myself of lifelong childhood respiratory illness. I had to figure that out on my own. I had to study. I had to research. I had to talk to experts to get kind of a better idea on what I was doing. But it only took 10 days for my respiratory, and so I went from breathing through a straw full of mucus my whole life and suffocating to winning a world title because I had endless amounts of endurance, right? That's immune function. And Will went through a childhood of respiratory illness from agriculture chemicals. It's not the germs that are causing the problem. It's the impurities, the toxins in the environment, the synthetics and heavy metals and other things like that cause our immune function, our genetic expression, and our immune function to go haywire, so that the bugs we're already made of the population gets out of whack, and then you end up with E. coli or staph or strep throat or whatever, which those bugs are beneficial when they're in a proper population. So Will can take that and run with it like a Heisman.
Well, your thoughts on train versus germ?
My thoughts. You might as well talk. Fraud versus truth.
I love it. Johnny, can you ask any questions that you might have, please, about virus? Johnny, please, you are hesitant on it. And that's okay.
I think it's important to define our terms here, because to some people, terrain theory means that germs and bugs don't exist at all, and I don't think you guys are saying that, right?
No, that's not at all. They do exist because we're 90% bugs and others. We're only 10% human.
Right.
Okay.
So it's the virus, right?
Go a little deeper into that, please, because I love that thought.
Okay, so on again, this is Bruce Lipton. This is the actually the genomics thing that came out. There's a book. It's called 10% Human. By cellular count, we're only 10% human cells. We're 90% bacteria and fungus and parasites and all these other things. When they're in balance, we're all fine. But when the immune system of the human part isn't working very well, like most people's, and we test for that, so it's really easy for us to see it doesn't work because the immune system function has a low number. If it's a high number, it's working well. And so when you're vibrating low or your vitality is really low, your immune system function is really low, you can't keep the 90% in check or in balance. They're going to get out of balance, especially if you're eating a high carbohydrate, sugary diet. You're feeding the problem even worse. And so because the 90% pretty much live on glucose, which is sugar, blood sugar, it's hard. If your immune system isn't working, you can't have balance inside of you. There's a perpetual war going on for volumetric attrition, meaning the E. coli's are going to be fighting the whatevers, and you throw a little sugar into that, then you throw some stress into that, and then you got your tapeworm and your roundworms that become a little bit active, and they actually give off elements, exudates that feed certain bacteria and so forth. So you have this community. You want to talk about the terrain theory? That's what I'm talking about. You have a multifaceted, multi-species communication thing going on, and there's just like this little battle going on all the time inside of us. And if your immune system isn't working, the battle gets pretty heated for some people. You get infections and MS and headaches and digestive problems. You get all these things, these symptoms, hundreds and hundreds of them. Well, if your immune system was functioning, the terrain would be balanced.
Is that true of viruses as well, or do you? Because I know some people.
It depends on what you call a virus.
Yeah, exactly. That's where.
I mean, you can identify SV40, simian monkey virus 40th mutation. You can identify that because it was a created thing. It's a creative set of chemistry, easily identified a certain way. Well, inside of us, we make our own viruses. Plant make viruses. We do it really twice a year in mass. Usually fall going into winter, spring going into summer. We go through a massive detox, so the body creates the chemistry, the viruses, the chemistry to break down, mobilize the toxins to get it out of the body, hence a cold.
Exosomes? Is that what you're calling exosomes?
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I would say the virus, in my opinion, the natural ones, it's a set of chemistry. They don't have a life onto their own except the chemistry part. But when they we're made inside. They can act as a organism in a way, especially the lab created ones, the SV40s, the HIVs, HPVs. Now we have SARS-CoV-2 and all those mutations. So you have all of that chemistry, which is technically, the bioweapon side of things, which is everywhere. Like I've tracked SV40 and HPV from late 1950s on to 4 generations of people into the grandkids. It transfers through because the fetus is a detox pathway, just like sperm is a detox pathway. And it's easy to then, because the body doesn't want that crap, it's going to get rid of it. And it really gets rid of it through the fetus and the sperm pretty easy. And then now we have 4-5 generations of kids being born with all kinds of problems.
So
you look back to the 1980s, and Anthony Fauci is one of the owners of the the HIV synthetic virus, and in there it says specifically that the synthetics are essential, literally the word for word verbatim. The synthetics are essential for replication, meaning it can't multiply or spread without the synthetic component. So when they talk about a virologist talking about, yeah, but that's not the real virus that caused AIDS. Well, then how did it jump from monkeys to human beings? And how did it become an epidemic or a pandemic without the synthetics that clearly state they are essential for replication? So they've been hitting us with bioweapons for a minimum of 40 to 50 years.
The human body creates an exosome, which is a detox. But anything that is labeled a virus is most likely a bioweapon, and that if we didn't have those bioweapons, these types of viruses would not exist. Because
No.
I have Andrew Koff, Dr. Andrew Kaufman. I've been watching some of his videos, and he's been talking about how they've used Cox postulates to prove. There's articles that say they use Cox postulates to prove COVID, and then when he goes in the article and he looks up all of the the footnotes, and he goes to the actual research that they're footnoting, they actually say it's not Cox postulates, it's Rivers revisions or something like that, whatever that's called, and Rivers revised, and that they haven't isolated these viruses. What are your thoughts on that, Doctor?
Again, it comes back to definitions. I mean, because I test for SARS-CoV-2, which is the COVID virus, if you want to label it that, but the bioweapon side of it is the SARS-CoV-2. There was SV40 piggybacked in with HIV and the injections, and people are shedding that as well. And so, I don't want to debate on that. I can identify the things because we've identified them, because I don't use their technology. We have our own technology for identification of these things, and the narratives don't match. We're looking through the lens of natural science. They're looking through the lens of clinical science, which is two worlds apart. And so, I'm sticking over here in the natural world. There's a set of chemistry that the body, the plant, the cow makes. It's called a virus. It's identified as a virus, but it's a grouping of chemistry that becomes active inside of us or inside of an organism, and that's where I'm going to stick with that.
I find that interesting, and I would love to hear more about that. I find that interesting that we do create these things.
And then we have the bioweapon side of it. That's the lab created, the warfare things that infect, that cause disease, but it's still synthetic chemistry put together in a collective called something like SV40.
Like Lyme disease as well?
Lyme disease is over 105 different organisms associated with Lyme's disease. We've identified them, and it's everywhere. It's airborne. It's on 5 continents. I don't even test for it because Lyme disease isn't really Lyme disease as we know it, like you just said, like I'm thinking you guys know it, is an outcome of an immune system that doesn't function properly. Because as soon as you fix the immune system, the Lyme disease goes away.
Interesting. I find that.
I mean, I know, like you mentioned E. coli earlier. I've always tested positive for E. coli, and every doctor is, anytime I have some kind of stomach thing, they're like, oh, they want to blast me with antibiotics, even though I don't have symptoms of any of that, And finally, I had a doctor. It was like, no, just some people just have E. coli. Most people, this guy told me, and it doesn't mean that you're symptomatic, But I've been trying to they throw antibiotics at me every time I go to the damn doctor.
You're an outbreak monkey, dog.
No, but listen to Wil explain why E. coli and staph and things like that. We all have them.
We all do.
They have to be there for. Wil, you can elaborate.
Their B vitamin creation is from E. coli, Salmonella, Staph strep, Listeria when it's in balance. When it's not in balance, then we have showing up like you're saying. You're going to do a test. It's going to show because it's an infection. It's pathogenic, meaning it's overgrown its normal boundaries where it usually does its job in our gut, in our respiratory system, in our throat, whatever. It has grown because it's an immune system problem. The immune system's job is to keep all the critters inside of us in their proper parameters. They are not, because the immune system isn't functioning. And so then, because we need these bugs, we need all of these things. They're actually, when they're in balance, that's our immune system. That is our digestion. That is our metabolism. That is our immune function. All these things are dependent on the immune system keeping and regulating everybody's balance. When the immune system can't do its job, you have then E. coli outbreaks or salmonellas or staph problems or candida problems. It's never the bug. The bug is only doing what the bug can do because it can. There's plenty of food. It's hot. It's moist. And what do? They're in there breeding, having babies, and eating and shitting. That's what they do. And that's because the immune system is allowing it to happen that way. It's not keeping it. It comes all back to that immune function. Everything back to the immune function.
And does the immune system, when it's functioning properly, kill off them or get it to a balanced level?
It holds a balance with everything. And that's what the terrain theory was saying, is the balance is the diversity of all these strains in harmony with each other. That's the immune system's job. It's no different than an orchestra. If you've got 30 tubas and you've got one clarinet and one flute, you're not going to sound real good, right? There's an off balance. But when you have equal proportioned in there, you can sit and that music is actually healing for you. And so, but it's the conductor's job. It's the immune system's job to keep everybody in check, keep an eye on everything, and keep everything flowing properly, just like in an orchestra. It's the guy on the podium's job. And unfortunately, our immune system is in the toilet. It's not on the podium anymore. It doesn't work right. And so then your body's out of balance.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel that, like, I have so many people I know that have moved out of the big city, moved to a small city, growing their own food, doing all that, getting out in nature, starting to do that. I feel like if you live in the big city, you're just out of whack. And I just know people are constantly sick all the time.